Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Baka 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 podcast.
Baka!
Baka.
It's amazing how every time you open your mouth, you prove you're an idiot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Baka Baka Baka. What are we? Who are you to ask? Why are you judging us? You press play. You know, why do I have to tell you that we're an anime podcast and watch an anime every 2 weeks? You know, I'm not being defensive. You're being aggressive here.
You know what we're about.
Yeah, you. But welcome.
I'm sure they feel welcome.
We're here to talk about the anime, The Millionaire Detective, Balance Unlimited. And to do it, I need the help of my co-host. First off, we have the rigs to my Murtaugh, Jeremy.
Is that Lethal Weapon?
It is. I'm so proud of you right now.
Yes.
Good job. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been playing a lot of Cyberpunk 2077, and I'm not going to get into that because there's plenty of people talking about it. But I would definitely say on PC, I'd give it a solid 7 out of 10. It's fun. But what I do want to talk about is Control. I got to play that game, and I managed to beat that game. And oh my God, that is an amazing game. It's got just the right mixture of suspense and horror and that SCP Foundation vibe that you get. It's just so good. And the action is really well done in it. I love one of my favorite abilities in it is launch. And I actually maxed that out really quick. And I just kept using that through the whole game. So good. So entertaining. But yeah, that's a good. I'd give that game a 10 out of 10. That was a fantastic game.
Yeah, I'm also playing. I'm very early into it, but since it came out, I've heard people say like, "This is a great game," but it just never seemed to catch on to like the public's radar, right? And then they released that Ultimate Edition and a free upgrade to PlayStation 5, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'm ready to bite the bullet. I'm going in." And it is fantastic, like you just said.
Yep.
All right, we also have the hooch to my Turner, Jason. How you doing?
Yeah, you threw me off with that one. No, yeah, pretty good.
It's a buddy cop film. It works.
Right? Yeah, definitely still on the Minecraft train, but because for the people in the know, Direwolf 20 just released his brand new pack for 16.4. So I'm sure neither of you know anything what that means. But speaking of SCP, I every once in a while I'll go looking for articles because I enjoy this website. But on YouTube, there's some guys who did a short film, like 30-minute long short film that's fantastic called Overlord. And it is spooky. And like for a fan-made film, this felt good. Like there's some little awkwardness because they're not professionals. But dang, was it good. They like the premise is, they're SCP Foundation, like assault team members going to check out reports of a possible SCP they need to go contain. And they go to this house in the middle of nowhere, and there's these people just floating in the air. And that's how it starts. Because they got word of abduction, and then they get this picture of like one in the air. I was absolutely blown away by the ending. Totally worth a watch.
I got it up. I want to be checking that out. That sounds really cool.
Very cool. And my name is Troy. Along with playing Control, other video games. As most people know, I'm a huge movie buff, and I don't come across many movies I don't know much about when I watch them. I'm usually digging into trailers. I know what I'm getting into. And I watched a movie on Netflix, and all I knew about it was directed by the same guy who did Moon and the Warcraft movie, and it was called Mute. And it takes place in a cyberpunk future, very similar aesthetic to like Cyberpunk 2077, right? And it's about a guy who was raised Amish. he's not Amish, but he was raised Amish, so he's not comfortable with technology. And as a child, it was an accident that hurt his vocal cords, so he can't speak either. And he works in the CD bar, and he has a girlfriend that he loves very much in that bar, and she disappears, and he has to. It's a noir detective story of him trying to track down where his girlfriend go, but he can't talk, and he sucks at using the technology that perpetrates the world while trying to go through the seedy underworld. And Paul Rudd, the guy who plays Ant-Man, also has a character in there, and he's fantastic. He steals the show half the time. He has this huge mustache, and he's both funny and scary. It was a great, I love noir stuff anyway. So a cyberpunk noir. It was a really cool movie.
Do they
What
run
was it called
into
again?
Do they run into a detective with a gun for it?
No, there's no
That's
no
awesome.
gun heads.
It's not quite perfect.
It
What's the show called again?
was called Mute.
Mute.
Yeah, that was good. All right, let's go on to talk about the anime that we're here to talk about. Like I said, it's the Millionaire Detective, Balance Unlimited. To start us off, we're going to do non-spoiler reviews, just to let you know what our original opinion is and whether you should watch it. Jeremy, why don't you go first?
I actually enjoyed it more than I thought it would. That I thought I would. It was entertaining, and I laughed quite a bit. I like the characters, and I enjoyed the way that they interacted. But yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely not like a top anime for me, but it's a fun sit down and watch.
Mm-hmm. Jason, what'd you think?
Take it or leave it. I wasn't. Nothing really hooked me. I think near the end it started to get fairly interesting. I actually really didn't. I was kind of dreading hitting play for the next episode till probably episode 5.
Wow.
This wouldn't have passed a 3-episode test for me. But by the end, it had some decent story plots. It had a cool mystery that they unraveled fairly well. But there's this weird story beat where the two main protagonists, it's hard to get to like either of them because they're always fighting for the spotlight, it seems. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to talk about. I am undecided on like a final score yet, but like I said, it was a take it or leave it for me.
So going into this, I know the audience reviews were pretty high, and I just said I'm a noir guy, I'm a detective guy. I was excited for this. It didn't quite give me what I thought it was going to give me. I was kind of in Jason's boat where I was struggling a little bit more in the beginning. I was kind of like, why does this matter? What does any of this even have to do with anything? Then we get into the bigger mystery in the later half of it, and that was better. But I do think there's some sloppy storytelling. I don't think the characters quite jive the way they could optimally for me. So I don't know if that's just a personal take. Like I was maybe expecting something different. Maybe I was expecting a buddy cop like Lethal Weapon, or Turner and Hooch, and that's not what this was trying to be. This was more trying to be something else. So
No name for it.
yeah, or nothing that I don't want to spoil. I don't want to even touch anything spoilery. So I'll leave it there.
I think the one thing that kind of popped into my mind early on was, you've got nerds that love the power fantasies like Overlord. This very much felt like a Wall Street Overlord. Like,
Yeah.
Balance Unlimited. I can buy and spend however much. Like, I can fix anything I want with money because I've got an unlimited bank account. And I don't know. That just didn't appeal to me.
Fight the power. Yeah, let's go on to the OP and the ED. Jason, what did you think of the songs here, the opening and closing?
The song for the OP was really good. The visuals were okay. It was pretty. But because of the context of the characters, I wasn't too excited to see them for a full minute and a half. I just kind of wanted to get the episode over for a while. And like I said, as the anime went on, it did get better. But yeah, the OP was good, and the ending was okay.
I'm in a similar boat, but I definitely liked the visuals and the intro more. I got a kick out of seeing the difference between the two characters because they did such a good job of like drawing the contrast between the two characters in the intro and the outro, where you basically have the guy who's like you were saying, Jason, the Wall Street overlord, and he's confident and he's walking around and there's money floating everywhere and he's lighting it on fire and he's solving all his problems with that, and he's just always calm and confident. And then you have the other character who's poor. He's just a regular guy, and he solves everything through
Even
just
gets his pay cut.
yeah, right. Through brute force and just a desire for justice. And so it shows him like in the intro, it shows him like running past the guy and tackling somebody who he's got a handcuff and everything. And in the outro, it's just showing him like running back and forth across the screen. Well, the rich guy is just calmly walking around. And I got a kick out of that because that portrayed their personality so well, and it was consistent through the whole thing. And not to mention, like I told you, both of you guys, when I was in the chat, when I first saw the intro, I was like, this is a sexy intro. Like it's so Bond, right? Like they hit some Bond strings. They've got some great I don't know if it was violin or cello or what, but the stringed instruments that they used at the beginning just for that intro, it just hit me every time. I actually really liked the music for the intro too. I listened to it and watched the intro most of the episodes, probably 7 or 8 of them, which is really unusual for me. Outro, it's definitely the first couple lines are very catchy, but the rest I can take it or leave it. Yeah, exactly.
Anybody want to do what you want to do? Intro, I absolutely 100% agree that it's very sexy. I love the section, the visuals of it. Women in lingerie and men moving their clothes as they lounge across a bathtub full of bed, stuff like that. And then your cars bursting through explosions. Like it's all like Jeremy, you hit it. It's Bond. Like it's all like savoir faire. It's very cool. And the music had a good emotional thing to it. Like, hey, we're gonna do like a sexy thriller coming up, and then the anime doesn't quite live up to that.
No.
Going in. But yeah, the OP was one of my favorite beats of every episode, and I am in love with the ending song. The visuals aren't as exciting. I do love the. I added it to my playlist this morning, and then
oh my god,
my 6-year-old son walks in and goes, "I like this song. It's like my theme. This is my theme song." And walked out, and I'm like, "All right, that's my boy." But yeah, there's a shot in the outro where they're like in a box together spinning, and it also like Jeremy said, a lot of this captures their personalities really perfectly. And here we have the one character who's poor, who looks stunned and like, "Oh, why am I in a box?" And the other guy who's like, "Oh, this is annoying, and why am I in a box?" And it perfectly captures their characters. So they do that well, and I didn't have a reason to skip either time. So I liked them. All right, moving on to our spoiler section. So if you have not seen The Millionaire Detective Balance Unlimited and you are planning to and don't want it ruined for you, proceeding beyond this point would be unwise on your part. Not our fault. We are warning you here. Man, I am aggressive tonight. I apologize for all interactions. All right. Let's start off here then. And we start with our two main characters, and we see them getting ready for the day. One guy's arriving in Japan on his private jet, and the other guy's walking into the office and being ignored by the top cops and going down to the basement where his fellow officers are not looking at porn and not gambling and not buying snacks on the internet. And his boss is definitely not building a ship model because they're hardworking policemen. Yeah, no. They are not hardworking policemen, and with those, we meet our two main characters. Our everyday cop is Haru Kato. So, what are your guys' thoughts on him first?
I really thought he was a decent protagonist. I liked his backstory. I liked it, and again, his backstory, his personality, what he does, and his fight for justice very much feels like a buddy cop show. Like this is nearly copy and paste from like all the greats, right? but kind of the way he approaches stuff is, his priorities feel good for a straight man hero character, right? And so because of that, I did like his approach to a lot of the problems that he went and tackled throughout the anime. I did like his loyalty to his friends, and I felt like his arc was pretty flat. I don't think he really learned much from being with other people. He's just like, no, it's justice. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
But he does overcome his fears later. But I mean, he's I liked him in this story.
What you were describing there about how important justice is to him and everything, it made me think of the lawful stupid paladin, right? Where you make decisions based on whether or not it's a righteous thing to do or it's a just thing to do, and there may be consequences to those decisions that if it was treating him cheaply, he wouldn't have to face. But I thought the anime did a good job because he did have to face those consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Like in one case, a person dies, two people die, but one of them is important, so the other's just kind of ignored. In another case, it's a pet that he doesn't, he never would have actually solved the problem he had set out to solve because of his approach, because it was based on doing it the just way, doing it the righteous way, because that's how he had committed to doing it. Whereas the other guy takes a different route, solves the problem in a different way. And it's interesting to me how they kind of allow him to experience those things, and yet, like you say, Jason, he may not even realize that those were consequences to his decisions because he's disconnected his decision from the righteousness of the decision, right? So like this had to happen. And I totally agree with you about his arc not really being anything particularly interesting. He does have a bit of development, but I enjoyed seeing him regain his desire to be a hero, right? Because that was what was so important to him. And I think that was probably the closest thing that he really had to a character development is getting back to the point that he lost in his pre-story, what we don't find out until partway in.
Before I give my opinion, I wanted to ask you guys a question. So this anime has two main characters who approach being a cop very differently. Do you think it made an argument for Haru's way of being a cop? Like,
that's a good question.
Like, could it be any other cop that fills this role, or is it, hey, your Daisuke is better because of Haru being here, or Daisuke just needs a Robin to his Batman. He needs a tool there. And when I watched it, I didn't, is what I'm saying. And maybe I missed it. There are actually some plot points. I feel like I missed some stuff. So I totally could be missing it. But I had a hard time with the character because I'm like, the anime never told me you were important or your ways of doing things had equal value to the rich guy.
Well, it wasn't just him versus the rich guy, right? It was him versus the bad guys, and it was him versus the bureaucracy, and it was him versus the corrupt leadership. Like, there were so many things against him in this anime. I mean, even his friends turn on him.
Right. Yeah. But there's a theme of this. The contrast between the two main characters is you want to do justice always with money, and I want to do justice the right way. And then at the end, it just seems like, okay, you were right about the money thing.
It does very much seem like that because earlier on, like, there's a very big split ideologically where they have an argument about, like, Daisuke's like, or no, Haru's like, Daisuke, you cannot do this. Like, I'm disappointed that Daisuke wasn't arrested by the end of this anime for some of the stuff that he's done.
Well, he's got all that money.
Right, exactly. And that's probably one of the things that really bugs me about this anime is that, like, oh, I got money, I can do whatever the crap I want. As long as I pay people double. And it's just like, oh.
And that's where I think that in my answer to your question, Troy, would be that if Daisuke didn't have Haru there, sort of acting as something to restrain him and hold him back.
Like an anchor.
Yeah, I think he would have gone so much farther, right? Like in the first episode, we see Haru leap in front of people and protect them, and Daisuke actually runs into a lamppost, avoiding them. So that to me says that he wasn't going to avoid them, because if the only way to avoid them is to run into a lamppost, he certainly wasn't planning on doing that. And then there's another spot in that episode where he's, there's a couple of people that are probably going to die, and he's totally fine with that, and he's pushing them over. Now, it's debatable whether or not he would have carried through, or if he had some hope or idea of his own that was going to save these situations, but the evidence looks like Daisuke really didn't care and figured he could just pay money to solve these problems. And I think that's kind of a running theme with him, is that he's not in it really for justice. He has one thing that he cares about, and he is in the police force for the purpose of solving that one thing. And so he's just treating the whole thing as like, I'm just going to throw money at all these things. And I think it's Haru that kind of shows him that there is more to being a policeman than, trying to go after your own solution, or trying to go after this thing that you care about, but not really the role of your job, and teaching him about justice. And that's, I think, what his role was. So I don't think it was necessarily that the anime was really comparing the two approaches to justice. I think it was trying to show the flaws in both.
Yeah, and I'm not saying like the answer was ever going to be like this one guy is right and this one guy is wrong, but like, hey, I see the values from yours, and now you see the values from mine, and we can work together, buddy cop style. And I like what you presented, and I do see that there. I'm not quite sure it's exactly what I'm thinking. I do like. I really like the idea of like, I need someone with like compassion, because I'm a sociopath.
Yes,
to help
that's
me.
what I saw.
To help me be effective, and that works. But thematically, I'm just wondering if the anime's trying to say anything about like, hey, it's both there. You have to have both approaches to it. And there's also a little bit of because Haru doesn't. He's like, I'm just a civil servant. I'm here to follow the rules. But deep down, he wants to be Clint Eastwood. He wants to be movie cop who does things his way and saves the day. He's always rushing into the situation when he's really not supposed to.
Yeah.
That's his inclination. And Daisuke's like, go with that. Be like me. Don't care about anything and do what you feel like doing. So I can see how he evolves. I just have a hard time seeing how he evolved Daisuke, which is, I guess, a little more what my expectation was. But I do think Jeremy's got something there that does make it better for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a bigger problem is like, even till the very last episode, these two don't see eye to eye, and they clash ideologically all the time.
Even
like
in the last episode, the final seconds, they're like,
final seconds of the last episode.
I hate you.
Like, yeah.
but there's a certain camaraderie that they have gained now, and that does shine through the hatred.
Yes.
That wasn't there for like the first half of the anime. Yeah, there's one scene, and it's actually like right at the end of the intro, and I mean, the scene is not in the anime, it's just in the intro, and it shows their faces, and first it's Daisuke's, and his face kind of
pixelates, or
exactly
snap.
Dissolves toward the right side of the screen. And then the same thing happens with Haru, as it dissolves toward the left side of the screen. And so in my mind, I kind of interpreted it as the anime is saying that these two individuals, only together are they actually going to be an effective policeman.
Right, and the ending does something similar, where they are single tone, and then at the end, the two colors have now gone into both of them. There's purple and blue streaked across them. Yeah. So, all right. Let's then talk about the man of the hour, the guy on the jet plane, Daisuke Kanbei, who is, the show's called The Millionaire Detective. He's got to be much richer than that.
Oh, yeah.
And I wrote down the amount of yen per episode, but I never translated it into dollars. So
just minus 2 zeros at the end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go 2 zeros in, put a decimal. That's
how I always generally do it. Is that exact amount for, or is it just, I'll give you a general?
it's general because I think the yen's a little. I think it's a little more than the dollar right now.
Okay.
But I mean, it's gone back and forth. But
All right, Daisuke. He's Batman,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and when I was watching the first half, I was like, well, he's Batman without a suit, and then later he gets a suit. I'm like, all right, well, what did you guys think of him?
actually, he felt more like Black Panther than he did Batman. But um, he's not nearly as intelligent as say a Batman, but he's way more rich.
Yeah.
I think what made this character interesting is it turned that rich guy turns superhero cliche on its head a little bit, because we come to a point that I'll spoil a little bit here, that he's asking his Tony Stark has his AI, this guy has his AI, and he asks his AI for information. The AI says he's not authorized. That was the first time that I was like, oh, something interesting, like something behind the scenes that's basically a crack in this invulnerability of this character, right? And so unfortunately, this character is really, for most of the anime, defined by I'm a rich guy. And I have cool gadgets. But as the story continues, you warm up to him more, especially with the mystery that's wrapped around, which makes me like Cho even more. And Cho's another character we'll get into later. But besides that, I kind of couldn't stand watching him go, I'm going to do this thing, pay everyone double. And that was like the answer to literally all his problems for the first 5 episodes.
Capitalist pig dog. What?
Well, I absolutely loved this character. He cracked me up every time that he was making decisions, every time that he was doing things that were just so ridiculous and unbelievable. And the only reason that it did is because at the very beginning, I accepted the premise that he has an unlimited balance. And if you don't accept that premise, then everything he does, if you try to make sense of what the real costs of anything are, double isn't going to be enough, because, right, let's say you pay back somebody for the damages to their vehicle. Well, what about the damages to their day and to their life and to their, because people, they come with damages that are emotional and things like that when they come to lawsuits sometimes. So all of these things, they really can't just be balanced out or budgeted the way that he does. But if you accept that conceit that, he's going to solve it with money, it really doesn't matter what it is, then watching him do his silly things with complete disregard to everybody, just it cracked me up because of how shocking it was. The way that we're really introduced to this the first time is in this first episode, there's a bomb that people know about. The terrorists are going to be attacking somebody, and some people have gotten away, and Haru is hearing this boom, 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 boom sound, and the camera pans over, and we see traffic is set in 2 lines, and there's this black, really nice car coming up between them, going right down the center line, and it's just shoving the cars out of the way, not even slowing down, just like boom. That's what you're hearing, is the boom boom of it hitting the fenders of each of these cars and shoving them out of the way. And just like the ridiculousness of that level of disregard, I just cracked up. I just thought it was the funniest thing, and I had to rewind it and say, Tanya, get over here. You have to see this. This is so crazy. And he continues to do things like that. Like, his solutions to problems sometimes are just shoot missiles at things and blow them up. We need to stop this person from fleeing this direction. Let's blow up the bridge. Let's raise the bridge. Divert the cops, right?
Hey, I'm going to strap you with a missile backpack.
Yes, and I'm not going to tell you. And you're just going to run around, and somebody else is going to hit the fire button.
Actually,
like,
oh, go ahead.
Just that kind of stuff cracked me up so bad. And then at the same time, I enjoyed them developing the sort of character to back that up, right? Like, he's not a guy that you can tell he's thinking about other people, and he's thinking 10 steps ahead or anything. He's not like that. Like you said, Jason, he's not as smart as Batman. He's really not that smart. He's incredibly handicapped because of all of these gadgets and all this technology and money that he has. And when they're taken away from him, as we get to see in episode 4, he's really kind of helpless and has no experience. He's very naive. And so showing what kind of character it is without his gadgets shows you why he makes the decisions he makes when he has the gadgets. He never had any kind of tempering or balancing in establishing somebody who would have that sympathy and compassion for other people. And yeah, so I don't know. I got a real kick out of watching him and seeing the shenanigans he pulled, and then also seeing how he, by the end of it, had developed a measure of sympathy, a measure of understanding, and an actual desire to be a cop instead of just fulfill his goal.
I will say my favorite story beat within like his power set was getting everybody to hold up their phones and spin around for money. I thought that like and when I realized why they were doing it, I was like, that is a brilliant idea.
Yeah,
the idea that you can, you know, we'll get into it when we get there. But that was a cool piece of writing.
Yep.
I'm mostly in Jeremy's boat with Daisuke. He said most of the things that I like about him. On the negative side, though, and like I said, I have positive things. I just don't want to rehash mostly what Jeremy just said. But on the negative side, he's a character who is in even in his description, he's bored. He's bored with life, and he has this one thing he wants to do, and so he's joined this police force to do it. But he's bored. And when you have a character walking around your story bored, he doesn't really come off always as the most interesting. Episode 4, which we'll talk about, and it has already kind of been mentioned, I think helped a lot with his character, made him more endearing to me, but he's definitely not anywhere near to an endearing character. I found him a little hard to he's hard to relate to because I'm Poe, and
Me too.
As fun it is to watch, you know, Bruce Wayne without like much of a moral conscience, it's fun, but it's not really a deep character for me. So it's a little bit of a double-edged sword with him.
It kind of reminded me of let's say you take a game, right, and it has microtransactions. He's the guy who's bought all the levels. He's bought all the gear. He's bought everything. He's hollow, and he has all the advantages, but none of the experience leading up to it. Whereas Haru is the guy who's he's just grinding his way all the way up to this
on his free-to-play account. Yeah,
that's exactly right.
So in this story, Kato's called out. So basically, he's part of the Modern Crimes Division. We only see 2 divisions. There's First Division, which they get to do everything, and Modern Crimes, and they get to sit in the basement. And hey, this parade of fancy cars needs extra security guards, and since you guys don't do anything, they called us. Who will do it? Well, Kato's the only cop who cares about anything, so they send him out.
And he's the only one that is able to carry a gun. All the others are unarmed.
Yep. He brings the guy with the porn as well. So there's apparently a prince with his fancy car in this parade, and so there's also now a terrorist attacking this parade. They actually arrest the terrorist, but they're trying to find the van with the bomb in it. At the same time, there's these 2 petty thieves who are casing jewelry stores, and this actually made me laugh because every jewelry store they go to, the boyfriend is like, "Oh no, that guy's way too big. We can't take him." Oh no, not old guys. They've seen stuff. You don't want to fight an old guy. and so eventually they find a place with no guard, 1 woman cashier, and they break in, and it's a candy store with the chocolate painted gold.
It's like bitter chocolate candy as well. Like that's what they're famous for.
So Haru is out talking with an old partner from the First Division about the bombing and stuff, and these thieves run out and run into him. They shoot his partner, but apparently they miss. But he pretends to be hit anyway to make a girl hold him.
No,
which
it
was
was
an
paint.
old lady.
It was paint.
Oh, it was a paintball gun.
Yeah.
See, I I like I said, I know there's details I missed. There's a couple things I was like, I don't get that. Anyway,
Yep.
they happen to jump into the van with the bomb and drive off. So this is when Daisuke arrives to the scene Jeremy described, the boom, 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 driving his car through other cars, and Haru stops from running into pedestrians and he crashes into a pole. So he gets out and he goes to the prince who has his fancy car, and he's like, "Hey, I'm taking your car." He's like, "This car is worth this much." He's like, "No, I'm paying you way more than that. Get out of the car." Very forcefully, but with reimbursement, takes the car from this prince. Haru jumps in the car with him. They go driving around, and then we see the AI system for the first time. So he has an earring in his ear that links him up to his version of Siri, which has access to his funds and can do think Iron Man, when he talked to Jarvis or Friday.
Yeah, basically Jarvis.
So I did want to talk about Hughes, the electronic butler. Your guys' thoughts on it? I know Jason, you already touched on it a little bit, but any other thoughts?
Not really. Yeah, you could copy paste Jarvis for it, but I did like that all of a sudden we come to a blocker in the story for Daisuke where it's like, yeah, you're not authorized. And he's like, why am I not authorized? They're like, you're not authorized to know that. Like, what?
Yeah, I also liked how his not only his greatest source of information, but his greatest weapon is tied to Husk, right? Like his ability to use all of his gadgets could be just deactivated or overpowered by Husk. And so when there's an opportunity where Husk can be used against him, like that's just so much more potent than having a different weapon that could be like, an alternative AI or something that invades. Just having your own turned against you when you're so used to having. I mean, he must have had it since he was a little kid too.
No. It
No?
actually shows him get it. It's when he pulls those sunglasses out of the box. There's a flashback in the final episode. He's sitting on a bench and he pulls that out, and that's what because he said, I was going through life bored, not doing anything. I got these glasses one day. They connected me to Hughes, and I was like, I know what I'm gonna do with this.
I thought the glasses just told him about the murder. I didn't think the
No.
glasses allowed him.
And I don't know much about the
First
glasses, but
connection.
that's when he found Hughes.
Okay, cool. Well, then, yeah, I would be more suspicious of it than he was.
Right?
Yeah.
But my big thought is, I mean, it's his superpower, right? And he is I mean, we've made the jokes about Black Panther, Iron Man, Batman, but this is his superpower, being rich and having an AI who can do everything. And so going into it, my assumption was, well, eventually he'll lose it and have to show his value on his own. But this actually goes a step farther and goes, but what if Hughes is the enemy? Or and I did like that because what I thought was going to be a predictable story beat, they took it up a notch, and I did appreciate that. Even though they still used it more than I think I would have once realizing it was against me. But,
Yeah.
when you have a superpower and you need your superpower, I guess you don't have many choices.
Yeah.
So Hughes basically reroutes the traffic lights to make the cops go away, make all traffic stop, and make this van go onto a bridge. It's a drawbridge. And then he goes to the drawbridge and uses the car to push it up the open drawbridge until it's going to be. And the boyfriend jumps out immediately. The girl is stuck in there. She can't jump out. So Haru actually runs up and jumps in with her, helps her get out, and steers the van so that it'll go straight and into the river. And then he jumps out at the last second and is hanging from the bridge. The bomb goes off in the water. Everyone's safe. And then Daisuke walks up to the edge of the bridge, looks down at him, and just smiles as he falls to his death.
And they drew this out too. Like they take it must have been a 10-second shot altogether.
Just staring at each other's face, yeah.
Yeah, and he's not even smiling for the majority of it. And then at the very last moment, he smiles, and it's just, you're such a jerk. You're such an ass. It was really good.
Haru didn't even ask hey, you gonna pull me up or anything. They're just deadlocked.
Glaring. Yeah.
Then the next day, Haru comes into work and he's got a bandage on his head, and they're like, "Hey, this is Daisuke Kanbei. He is now part of the team." And he's like, "That's the guy who made everything crazy yesterday." He runs up to him and he's like, you can't do that. And Daisuke's like, oh, okay. You want me to pay you?
How much?
Yeah, and that's how the first episode ends. In the second episode, we at work they find out through like a gossip website, they find out a popular model has died of a drug overdose, and it was like their favorite model. So Kato leaves and Kanbei follows him, and they go out to like grab some food, but they see some street performers, and Daisuke stops to talk to them, and then realizes they're on drugs, so he arrests them. And interrogates them, and two interrogations happen. One by a cop named Cho, who we'll talk about later. He's the old man on the team, and Daisuke doing his interrogation. Daisuke is basically like, "I'll pay you 100 bajillion good bazillion dollars if you just tell me what I want."
Which, how would that ever stand up in a court as evidence? Like, oh,
This is the stuff that irritated me the entire anime. I'm just like, why is Daisuke not in prison?
funny.
The funny thing is, they get their answers from him at the same time. Cho gets his guy to talk and give him a name, and right at the same time, Daisuke is walking out like, he talked and gave me his name as he's like writing the check.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from there, they go start staking out this the guy who's supplying the drugs to the models, and he's hanging out with beautiful models, and then eventually this dark-haired woman starts spending time with him, and she actually like sells him some stuff. And then Daisuke leaves. He's like, I'm not doing this anymore. And Kato follows this woman, and he tracks her down to this giant mansion. And he's like sneaking up to it. And then Daisuke pulls up. He's like, wait, what are you doing here? He's like, this is my house.
Actually, it's a little more drawn out from that because he doesn't answer him at first, and he's like, "What is this? A hotel or a restaurant?"
He walks him in and takes him into the subterranean levels with the giant computer. And then that black-haired woman is there working on the car. She's like a mechanic, and this is Suzue Kanbei. I really like Suzue because I think she's a funny addition. I don't know who she is, and
She's a relative.
I googled
That's
her
as much as we know.
I googled her before the show because I realized I didn't know who she was. She's not his sister, at least the way she acts. Nope. She's not his wife, but she is family. Okay.
Cousin?
Thoughts on Suzue?
Yeah. I thought kissing cousin is about the closest thing I saw.
She calls him
master.
master.
To have a romantic relationship, but Daisuke was obviously way more important to her.
Whoa.
Yeah, she wanted to have a romantic relationship.
He doesn't have a romantic relationship with her. She seems very interested in a romantic relationship.
Yeah.
She calls him master. She's wiggling her hips at him like.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And calling him master may just be the sort of lord of the business and lord of the name thing. Because I think the granny calls him master too, doesn't she?
I didn't notice if she did.
Yeah, I didn't notice either. But I don't know. She felt very token as far as like her role. She was just kind of there to fill the humanness portion of Hughes. Because like the difference between Jarvis and Hughes was that Jarvis has a personality. Jarvis can think for itself and kind of give advice and propose different options. Hughes was basically just a computer that responded with very computerized results. Like you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. There was no like humanness to it, and it felt like she was just kind of the stand-in for it. She ends up playing a bigger role later on, but the like neediness of her towards Daisuke was weird, especially to come to find out that she's a relative.
It's like, yeah. I enjoyed her as a character. I thought she was entertaining. She was funny to me. I got a kick out of it every time Haru was like obviously interested in her, but kind of hesitating to say anything, but he'd still like blush every time he saw her. And I thought that was cute because it just kind of showed it gave her an opportunity to have another reason there than just being for Hughes. Like she was interacting with other characters along the way. And she was also like engaging in some of the missions and maneuvers. And there was even a couple of times where she came out to actually, I laughed so hard because she came out to save them. It didn't make it because of a cat in the road. And, like just scenes like that, I think she added a bit of humor and just kind of down to earth nature, since we had two characters that were just so extreme in their approaches to everything. She just kind of seemed like she fit that way.
I also got the sense that she's the one making the weaponry. Like, we see her obviously working on the car here, and I think in this scene she says like, "Hey, this weapon is ready. I've got it ready." So I thought she was the one who inventing that stuff.
Yeah, she felt like the little sister in Black Panther.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so Haru, when he first sees her, he thinks she's a model who's on drugs, but he's like obviously attracted to her, and like, wow, she's cute. And then he's thinking, oh, this is his wife. Whoops. And then finds out later, no, they're not married. They're related. But yeah,
I'm so excited.
I liked her. I did feel sometimes she was redundant. I did feel like she was Sigourney Weaver in Galaxy Quest. She was saying what the computer could have said for him. Oh
my God, that's why I'm here.
It felt like she got sidelined a little bit sometimes, but I did like when she got to be involved and stuff. I did like the character. It gave some humanness to Daisuke that this character was here, right? Even though apparently she can also piss him off real bad.
Yeah. And we still don't know what she did.
Anime's not going to tell us everything, apparently.
Yeah, that's so weird. I'm not used to that. That's very weird.
So, Kato gets mad that, they've been doing undercover work without telling him. Like, why wouldn't you just tell me that? We were staking them out. So he storms out and he goes to his informant and finds out there's going to be a party where this guy's going to be at, and he's like, okay, I'll go. He steals the guy's identity, and he sneaks in. He steals the guy's phone, and he gets caught by the guard on the way out, and he has to try to fight the guard off. And this dog mascot who runs into the room saves him, and he's like, oh, it must be Daisuke. And the guy runs to the roof. He's like, Daisuke, that's stupid. Why we're trapped on the roof? But then Daisuke shows up in a helicopter, and it turns out this is Kato's informant who got paid off by Daisuke to do this mission to get this phone. Daisuke buys the building and then fires gas missiles at it.
It was great. I thought it would fit so well with the other ridiculous things he did. Like, it's crazy, but it fits.
It's the I bought the building so I can do this. That just like.
To be fair, that literally happened in Avengers 2.
I don't remember that, but that would still bug me as well. But
it was in the Iron Man versus Hulk fight. There's a like half constructed building. He's like, how much is that building? Buy it now. I'm gonna pile drive Hulk into it. Anyway,
I did at one point I wanted to bring out when he gets caught with the phone, like Haru's like, yeah, well, what are you gonna do about when I do this? And he sucker punches him, and the belt is just like, and now I'm gonna beat you.
Yeah. I also thought this villain and this bodyguard were gonna be a bigger deal because they're in the OP as like guys that are fought for a second.
Yeah.
And we never see them again. No,
right.
Which just a one shot.
These characters never even fight them. Like, I mean, this is the closest they get. Whereas in the OP, it looks like they're kicking their butts.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the supplier guy is arrested, and we learn that Haru left the first division of cops. He was like a top tier cop, and then he chose to leave. There was we find out the backstory is he went in to stop a bank robber, shot him in the arm, and then there was an accomplice in the bank who picked up the gun and he shot. Haru shot her too, and then he found out it was a fake gun. So he's held himself responsible for killing a woman, even though it seems like he was following procedure at the time because she literally picked up the gun and pointed it at him to shoot. He couldn't have. But he felt horrible about that. He was going to quit, and then was talked into staying and just going down to the modern crimes unit.
Yeah, because it seems like the modern crime they didn't use firearms. So because he's there at the range and he can't even fire the gun into paper,
Right.
let alone another person.
And then he is sent to a symposium in Hong Kong with Daisuke, which he was. There's a really funny scene of him being like, "Yeah, I'll go." Wait, what? And then he's on the plane. Wait, what?
Yep.
In the next episode, we see Daisuke bring Haru to meet his grandmother, sweet little old lady who likes to make tea, and he's like, "Yeah, your grandson's a bit of a dick," and she scolds Daisuke for it.
Oh man, and he glares at Haru so much.
So he takes that personal.
Uh-huh.
And then Haru goes home on the train alone, and he's sitting next to this kid who he has failed his like exams and clearly having a rough time. He gives him some encouraging words and like gives him his food. And then he gets off on the station, and when he gets out at the station, he starts hearing talk of a gunman on a train nearby. So he runs up, and it's the same train he was on, and the gunman is the guy he was sitting next to, who has put up video cameras in the train and has taken the entire car hostage, full of women who are going to like what I assume is the modern equivalent of a BTS, or in my speak, NSYNC concert.
Yep.
Some sort of boy band.
Yeah. So Haru goes on back into the train and tries to talk him into it, and the guy's like, "Nope, I'm crazy, and I'm here to do crazy stuff and get out of here." And then the First Division finds Haru, who tells him everything he knows, and they're like, "Haru, get out of here. You're not First Division. You're not. Get out of here." Daisuke shows up. And he's like, "Hey, yeah, let's go sneak back onto there. I have grappling hook suits we can use." And so they sneak back in, and he then uses
After
his
firing huge smoke missiles.
smoke missiles at the train.
Like, yeah, that's legal. Sorry. Anyway, go on.
Anything's legal if you can pay for it.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
They sneak back onto the train, and the smoke has blocked the sniper. So the reason they're sneaking back in is the First Division is like, "We're just going to shoot the guy. Let's get him to the window and just take him out." And Haru's like, "I don't want anyone to get killed. I don't think this guy is a killer. I don't think he should be shot." So, and then he has Hughes steal the kid's emails. And so then he confronts him. He's like, "Hey, I know you're doing this video because there's a video contest that if you get a certain amount of views, you get money, and you need money for your sister who needs a surgery in America." And then the women on the train just get so mad they're going to be late for their concert. They bum rush the guy.
One of the ladies literally says, "I would rather die
Yes.
than lose this concert."
"You guys
Yeah.
go. Let him kill me."
Yes. Okay, that to me redeemed this whole thing because I'm a little bit tired of my little sister needs surgery, so I'm gonna be a criminal. Like that is used so much to try and create a sympathetic villain, but the way that these women behaved, like that just redeemed the whole situation for me. I love
They
this.
all got like these like angry faces with like white eyes.
They'd lost their minds. They'd turned into monsters.
Yeah, the whole time they're like, "I hope the cops hurry up. We still could make it in like 20 minutes. If we hurry, we can get to the concert." Well, so then Daisuke uses Hughes to have the boy band appear next to the train singing. So all the women get distracted. The kid drops his gun. The cop drops his gun.
I have to complain about this.
How'd they
Because
get there so fast?
how they get there so fast? I mean, even given that the women are like, it's 20 minutes away, we can still get there if we hurry, which means that they can't be very far away if these women can get there on foot in less than 20 minutes. So they couldn't have been that far away. But the time at which Daisuke would realize that he needed them and make the call and convince them and give them the money and arrange transportation for the transportation to get there, for them to get over here, for them to actually start set up and have lights because lights shone in. Like all of that had to happen in less than 5 minutes. Way less than 5 minutes. More like
And does that
2
mean they have a
minutes.
stadium full of people without a show?
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
You
apparently, I
think
mean, I
that
guess
matters
the
for
show
Daisuke?
wouldn't have been. Yeah, I would have just paid them all. The show wouldn't have been started yet since they still had 20 minutes. But it was too quick. There wasn't enough time. This was, I think, maybe the only thing where I was like, that was magic. That wasn't money.
There's one thing at the end I'll bet you think is magic, but we'll wait till we get there.
Okay, I may have forgotten.
Yeah. So the hostage taker guy gets a real gun because everyone drops their guns and he comes up with a real one. And then Daisuke's like, I'm not worried about that. You're not a killer. He said you're not a killer. I'm gonna pay for your sister's surgery and you're under arrest. And Haru's like, how'd you know he wouldn't shoot? He's like, you said he wouldn't shoot, and I trust your judgment. And that's the way that one went.
I didn't really like that.
Yep.
I would have liked
Either.
it more if Daisuke had just said, just like scoffed at him and not said anything. I think that would have been better because there's no other camaraderie. There's no other sign of respect to believe this. It's just
Again, I'm sitting here like buddy cop, buddy. And I'm like, oh, maybe this is the sign. And then we go into this next episode, which I thought, man, I thought this was it.
And then
So the episode starts with Daisuke bursting out of his house. He's angry and he's going for a walk. And Haru calls him, is like, I need your help with something. So he gets a ride from his gardener to this park. And he gets there, and Haru's like, this little kid lost his dog. And Daisuke's like, you said this was important. He's like, yeah, but you have the AI. I figured Hughes could fix this. And Daisuke's like, fine, I will. And he realizes, oh, I'm not wearing Hughes. I don't have the earring in. And I don't have my wallet. So...
well,
and
he's
I don't
pissed
have my
at
phone.
Suzuki for something.
Yeah.
And we don't find out what. Suzuki made him mad and he stormed out.
No, he's like, I'm going home. And then she's like, hey, are you coming back? And he's like, all right, where's the dog?
Well, and the funny thing is because he doesn't have that earring, she's not actually talking to him. What's happening is as they're moving around town, her words are appearing on billboards.
Right.
They're appearing on cashiers' registers. Come back home. It's hysterical. And he's just glaring every time he sees it.
Also, I love the scene where Suzuki's talking to Hughes, and Hughes goes, balance limited. Because he doesn't have any money. So basically Daisuke's thing is, let's just go take the kid back home. Like, we can't find the dog. He got it from her. The dog is going to get home. The dog's the only one who's going to get him home. There's nothing really we can do. So let's take the kid home. They still look around. The kid gets lost. They end up having to call his parents, and they find a way to get him home. And then that night, like you said, the billboards are literally saying, like, come home, Daisuke. Yeah. And he's like, no, I'm not going home. So they go. The two grown men go grocery shopping together, and he's like, "You buy the groceries yourself?" And Haru's like, "Yeah, that's how you do it."
Would we call this scene grocery shopping?
Oh.
They go.
Yes, we would.
And they eat food. Just regular, made from home scratch food. And
Daisuke's never had like packaged food before, so
and he really likes it. And then they have like fancy fancy sliced ham.
Yeah. Haru gets some sliced ham that's like smoked and cured.
And really expensive. Yeah, and Daisuke's like, no, this is not my brand.
Yeah, he was like, I spent $15 on that.
Yeah.
So then he makes them like some bamboo shoots and some fish flakes, and that's a big hit. Then they start drinking from this giant bottle
of potato.
Yeah. They watch cop movies and get drunk, and I'm like, man, this is where it's going. In the morning,
cop magic is happening.
In the morning, he finds Daisuke like curled up in the bathtub.
Yeah.
I literally went. So my daughter has seen this one before. I'm like, why was he in the bathtub though? Was he trying to take a bath and he doesn't know how to turn it on? Is he used to an uncomfortable bed? He's just like hugging his knees, sitting in the bottom of a bathtub. It was so weird.
I
What
did
she
love the
say?
night
Did she have a reason?
before. Haru's like trying to bond with him, and Daisuke's just falling asleep.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm talking here. So Haru goes back out to put up poster signs for the dog, but is having no luck. And then Daisuke walks up and he's got the dog and he gives it to the kid. And then he tells Haru when the kid can't hear him, like, that's not the same dog. I just went back to the breeder and bought an identical dog. He obviously can't tell the difference. And the real dog got hit by a car yesterday and died. So I guess. Oh, and also I'm footing you with the bill. This is again Daisuke's way of solving problems is buying things, but then pointing out that not buying it was not going to fix it. There was no way to fix it except for buying the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like $5,000.
Yeah. Expensive dog.
I think it was only 500. The
It was
cost
50,
of the
it was 50,000 yen.
55,000 yen, so
That's
$550.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
And that includes the groceries too. So I would guess probably somewhere around 500.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
But still, that's not a cheap dog.
Mhm.
And then he goes home and he tells everyone he's not mad anymore. And he makes a homemade meal for Suzue. And they eat it together and they both like it.
I really hated the patronizing. Oh, I can now make the everyday man's meal, and it's amazing because we've never had something like that before because we're so smothered in filet mignons. It's like, oh, God.
I actually found it
I liked it.
endearing.
I liked it.
Yeah, I'm sure you did.
Honestly, I thought like, okay, you're winning me over. If we keep on this path, this is what I want. And then we don't really keep on this path.
The story, like main storyline, says no more time for character development. We got to get this ball rolling.
Yep. Which also the ball needed to get rolling. One thought I had about this anime is like if you take just like episode 1, episode 4, and then these last like 5 episodes and made it a movie, it probably would work better.
Or they needed to add another episode for character development because I mean it was only 11 episodes.
I was really bored with these single cases. The drug case I was just not into. And the other one, which I've already forgotten. Oh, the train. Yeah, the train one, which I think we all complained about a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't, the single ones aren't working for me. This bigger conspiracy, which starts in this next episode, I think that does work for me. But yeah, up until this point, it had been rough. Even though this 4th episode was better.
That's fair.
I had the impression that that's what this was going to be, was just a series of look at the gimmick of how he solves problem with money.
I was worried that it was. At this point, I was like, please not just like a doesn't matter to anything case every time where he just throws money at it. But we start the conspiracy here. News comes up that a foreign president from a foreign country is coming to Japan. Again. Well, last time it was a prince. This is a president.
Yeah. Leader, whatever.
And so Modern Crimes is assigned to guard duty at the embassy, basically outside, stand by the gate.
Because they needed more manpower because the first division didn't have enough people, right?
Right.
So these people without guns are gonna do a great job. So
they're all standing outside the front gate, whining about being there, and they're like, "Well, where's Daisuke? So like him not to show up." And then Daisuke does pull up because the president is here to meet with the Convey company, and Daisuke has decided to go in his grandmother's place. So he is literally the ambassador coming to the embassy to discuss business that they will be protecting. Then we see one of the president's bodyguards go up and talk to a chef. This is actually a pretty cool scene. He's like, "Hey, was there like a package delivered for us? I think it actually got sent here." And the chef's like, "Oh yeah, it was in the cooler." So they go in there and they open it up and there's like a Tachi, obviously top secret case kind of thing. And then we find out later this chef has been murdered. Yeah, this was a cool crime going in. And then so when they find out the chef is murdered, they rush the president and Daisuke to a panic room, and they at the same time Kato is noticing like, wait, something's wrong. The first division is rushed in, but they're not allowed in. But he's noticing on the outside like computer or the cameras are starting to break. So they're searching the perimeter. Daisuke they figure out who the killer is. He's that literally the guard who locked him in the safe room, and so he watches video of what that guy was doing today and realizes he's planted a bomb here in the safe room. And he opens up, it's a gas bomb, and he's like, okay, give me the blueprints for this bomb. And Hyusuke's like, no, you don't have permission to do that because this is a Kanbei manufactured weapon, and he does not have access to that,
which is weird because since it's Kanbei, it's like, well, why wouldn't he have access?
This is
also, I found it weird that they would have a safe room with only a key on the outside.
That does seem strange.
That was weird.
Also, just making it star shaped.
Yeah, that was an artistic flair, I guess. Also, the fact that somebody else could copy that, like that really. If you have a key to a panic room, it shouldn't be something you can just have the average man copy.
Right, because that was my thought. Like, what stops a bad guy from just going to like, oh, just make something star shaped and we're in. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The killer tries to hop over the wall. Haru sees him and chases him down. They get to like the roof, and the guy drops the key down the drain so they can't open the safe room, and then commits suicide off the roof. At the same time, everything's being jammed. This is where Jeremy mentioned Suzue is like driving her motorcycle to come help and gets in a wreck and like breaks her arm.
All because she's trying to avoid a cat that happens to be in the road.
Right. So no one's able to make phone calls or anything and call for help. Kato realizes kind of what's going on and he rushes back to the embassy. At the same time, Daisuke is getting ready to do what he can with the bomb, which is put a wet coat over it to try to take care of some of the gas. At the same time, Haru gets the door open and they manage to get everyone out just in the nick of time and they save the day. And one of the cops wasn't allowed to go from Modern Crimes, and that was the investigator Cho. And so he goes and he watches the investigation of the jammer device that was found. And it's also a Kanbei Industries device, I believe, or it might have been the other company. There's two companies. And then we see Daisuke's watching him watch that investigation. But quick question. Is this just a random incident? Because the reason the guy was trying to kill the president is because he's going to blow up a dam or build a dam that's going to ruin lands of his people in the country they're from. Mm-hmm. So, but this is also what starts the bigger investigation. This has nothing really to do with the murder. It just happens to involve Kanbei technology that's not supposed to be public. Is that all it is, or is there more pulling the strings in the background I missed?
So the fact that the murder happened allowed this technology to be developed and then sold on the black market to terrorists. And so this is just coincidental, but it is a cascading effect of the murder. Without the murder, it wouldn't have happened because the technology would have been open to anybody.
When we get to the big reveal, I'm going to bring that back up.
Okay.
But this is a good time to talk about our man Cho. Best dice-wielding cop in all of Japan. Jason, what do you think of Cho?
I liked him. I thought he probably would have been a better protagonist. Or at least more in the spotlight as far as a mentor to everyone. Because, he's this old-timey cop. He's been doing it for 35 years. He's literally going to be retiring soon. But there's this just one case that he just doesn't feel he can retire till he solves it. It was a little coincidental. A little too on the nose that it just happened to be the same case that Daisuke is interested in. But I mean, it leads to some good story beats, so I kind of give it a hand wave. But I really liked this character's motivations, that he was willing to bend the rules to get what he wanted, but when he knew he was kind of going over a line, he always backed off because he's like, yeah, but that he was pushing for literally 19 years to try and get this thing solved, because he knew there were some bad people out there. I liked his tenacity, and I did love that he was a mentor, especially to Haru, wanting to see him succeed.
Initially, I was a little bit worried that he was just going to be, I wasn't really worried. I just thought he was a throwaway character. As like, okay, they've got somebody for, like you said, Troy, at the beginning, right? You got the gambler, the porn addict, and the snack addict, right? So now you also have the old man. And so I thought that was going to be his role. But then when the boss, the director says, you were almost retired, I'm like, oh, he's dead. He's going to die. He's so dead. And so I started paying more attention to him. And like you said, he really stole the spotlight for these episodes. He was a great character, very fleshed out. And yeah, I actually was sad when he did die. And the same thing with he wasn't just a mentor to like Haru and others that were there. He was also a mentor to the previous generation, which meant the chief of the current first precinct, right? And that's huge. And it comes into play so well in the story. So they wove him into this really, really well. And even the dice that he's playing with, I mean, obviously they were going to matter. They gave them so much attention. I was wondering what they were going to do with them, and I thought it was pretty cool. I liked what they did.
I think what I really appreciated about him, or at least his storyline, is that it kind of showed this generational corruption that was happening at the higher up level that was now affecting, even back then it's affecting him, but now it's affecting our main characters. And they were children when this was happening, and now they're having to deal with it. I thought that was a good story beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love Cho and everything. I mean, he's a linchpin for so much of the story. Like I said, he's the reason modern crimes was created as a punishment. And he was one of the first guys on the big case, and he knows more about the conspiracy than anyone. He's been one step ahead of everyone else so far. God, I love that.
Yeah.
I love the director as a character. He's not important. He's not worth even really mentioning as far as like digging into the story, but he makes me smile almost every time he's on screen. He's just
and they give him such great scenes too that they have absolutely no consequence in anything else. Like there's one scene where he's in the elevator with a girl and he's like, hey, that was really nice. You want to go out for dinner sometime? She's like, no, that's okay. He's like, I'm harmless. Really, I'm harmless. It's just, they flesh him out so well.
He's a man who got crushed by someone else's mistakes and just has kind of accepted his role in life as I'm a loser. But yeah, Cho I absolutely loved. And Jason, I swear I had this thought, like, man, wouldn't it have been kind of a cool anime if Cho was the other main character teaching Daisuke how to be a cop while Daisuke is like, no, I'll just do it with my money, and that would have kind of been all right, but it's not, and it's not fair to say I wanted this that way. But Cho was great.
Yeah.
Because of the terrorist committing suicide, they're called in for an inquiry. Modern Crimes is, and they're basically told, "You're done with this case. Don't get involved. Go back to your hole. We're actually going to watch you and make sure you don't get involved. You just get out of it." But Cho, he has a friend who's like, hey, man, this was some high tech stuff. This is clearly from the Kanbei group. This is going to be covered up. You got some nasty stuff with that bomb. And then Daisuke, who's also investigating into this, goes to Cho and is like, hey, can we talk? And Cho's like, soon. And then Cho goes to dinner with Haru and is like, hey, that Daisuke guy, I don't trust him. I think he's involved in all this. What do you think about him?
He's revolting.
Yeah.
But I think he's a good guy.
Yeah. And then they go talk to I didn't catch her position. She's like an executive woman, businesswoman for the Miso Future Technology Group. Basically, they keep showing this picture of green grapes, right? But there's some new technology thing that has to do with these green grapes, and they go to her to talk about it. And she's like, she calls her boss. She's like, I'm being harassed, and you're now being recorded. They're like, so sorry to bother you. We're leaving. And they do leave, but a little drone goes inside her car from Daisuke, and he takes control of her car while she's driving, and he gets her in a police chase, and it causes all this mayhem, and then makes her think she hit a guy by putting an illusion on her windshield that there's a dead person on the ground. And so he arrests her for vehicular manslaughter and reckless driving, and he brings her in to interrogate, and only he is allowed to interrogate her. And Cho's like, "Whoa, that's shady, because we need to be talking to her." And he asks her if she knows of anyone by the name of Shigemaru Kanbei. She refuses to answer. He pulls up the files in her laptop using Husk, and they get to like one file, and Husk was like, "You don't have authorization to open this file." And Kanbei is like, "Oh, that sucks."
Yeah, because she's like screaming, "I want my attorney!" like the entire time.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the first division chief, who we will talk about later when we get to really meet him, he's appeared a few times, but he calls in Haru, and he's like, "Hey, I'm really suspicious of this Daisuke guy. This is clearly also involving the Kanbei. Can you keep an eye on him for me as a favor? We're trying to figure this out." Haru tries to go to Daisuke and ask him about what's going on, and Daisuke just blows him off. It's just one of the things that kind of frustrates me about Daisuke. He plays everything so close to the vest. He knows more than every other character, but he doesn't. He refuses to let anyone help. Like, this is mine. I'm watching all of this on a monitor at home, even when he's not involved. He's like, "I'm leaving," but then goes straight home to a monitor to watch what's happened after he left, but refuses to talk to anyone while they're trying to help, and that was frustrating for me.
I liked it. He was a loner and didn't think anybody else could do it as well as he could. That's how I interpreted it, as he's going to go home and he's going to watch and keep learning.
And this is personal. Of course, this isn't about justice. This is about him fulfilling a personal desire. I do get that, but at this point, I'm like, geez, just tell them. Come on. Cho is like, "I got a plan." So he goes and he gets this woman, and he's like, "Hey, your lawyer showed up. We're letting you go right this way. We just need you to wait in this room." And then once she's no longer in the interrogation room, comes in with her, and he's like, "Okay, I know about your son. I know he's in legal trouble, and you're going to tell me everything I want to know, or everyone's going to know about him." And she
It'd
said,
be a shame if this got out on the internet.
and she agrees. She's like, "I'll tell you everything I know." He goes out and he tells Haru, and Haru's like, "Nah, dog, that's not how we do things." And he lets her go. And she gets in her car with her lawyer, and she starts her car, and it explodes right in the police precinct, and she is dead.
Which is one thing I found odd about it, is that she saw a message on her car and she said something about the battery. She knew there was a bomb in there. Like, she didn't say it specifically, but her actions and the way, like, this was technology she was familiar with.
Yeah, she told the lawyer to get out. Try to save his life.
Cho then confronts Daisuke. They show Cho confront Daisuke, but then I don't think anything got resolved from this confrontation. Daisuke, I think, just like blew him off.
Well, he was like, "I think it's time to have that talk," and then it cuts away, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
But it doesn't seem like they had any talk.
If they did, it was off screen.
Right. Well, because after this, Cho is convinced Daisuke is the murderer. And then Haru asked his division chief, what's going on with Cho, and they open Cho's locker, and there's a sign in there that says the Sayuri Kanbei murder case headquarters. I believe, and basically there was an old cold case of a woman who got murdered that Cho worked on, and that's how the next episode starts, with a flashback to this case, and it's Cho and Take, who's the first division chief now, who was his partner at the time. They got called to the murder scene. It was Daisuke's mom, and all clues pointed to Daisuke's father. They actually went to Daisuke's grandmother and talked to her about it. She's like, "Oh, my son is out of the country. Like his wife was just murdered, and he's out of the country." She's like, "Yeah, he's a very businessman," and she's not very
Doing
helpful.
business.
So, so Cho literally steals their family photo album, and takes it to the witness, and the witness is like, "Oh yeah, it was definitely that guy," and points at Daisuke's dad. And then they're working the case, they're working the streets. They get in trouble for stealing the photo album, but they also find a locker key inside of it. So they're trying to figure out where this locker key could go, and they do tell the division chief about it, even though they got in trouble for the photo album. Then Daisuke's dad shows up, having committed suicide. His body's burned. He left a note. So the case is closed, and the key suddenly disappears to the locker. So they were planning on opening it anyway, but they never do. And the last scene of the flashback is Cho giving his partner Takai a present for his newborn baby, and that ends the flashback. And then we come back into the modern story, and it's been 3 days since and Daisuke's been missing for 3 days, and everyone assumes he's the bomber. So Haru and Cho go to his mansion and burst through the gate with their car, get surrounded by drones, and Haru's like, "Nah, you're talking to me. I'm your partner. What is going on here?" And he lets them inside. And then he reveals he's trying to solve his mom's murder. He saw his dad standing over with a knife. And then it jumps over back to the first division chief to Take. And so I wanted to stop here and to ask you guys what you thought about Take, because as much as Cho is a character here, this character actually becomes a much bigger character. I didn't even recognize him in the flashback. It wasn't until like later I was like, "Oh, the voice was familiar," because I watched mostly English dub. The final episode was an English dub. But what did you guys think of him?
I liked his finale, but and like his position within the story, but he didn't have a ton of screen time. He was more of he's the boss that told Haru, to shoot. So he's kind of the good guy boss trying to help out, but he's got that thing with Haru, and like, I don't know. He didn't have enough screen time for me to really care too much about him till his final moments. But
I'll definitely agree that the final moments really made him matter. They also reframed his interactions with Haru, and I kind of liked that because, that scene where he was telling Haru to watch Daisuke, it had a different meaning now. It didn't seem quite as innocuous as it did before. And the things that we learn about him, about how he got into that position, it just really fleshed him out as a character, and he became interesting. And the real sense of terror and fear, like, they did a really good job of showing that somebody that's in such a high position of authority and power yet can be so completely controlled by an external force, corrupted, to where they're absolutely terrified for their life. They did a great job with that, and yet he had his redemption moment as well at the end. So I liked him altogether.
Yeah, I thought the reason I added him to talk to about it is because he's a really fun gray character. He's not evil. He's not even trying to help the bad guys. He really was just silent and took his promotion. And in the flashback, they're like, "Hey, you married the chief's daughter, and you had a new kid." And he's like, "I didn't marry her for that. I love her." He's like, "Oh, no. I mean, there's nothing wrong with getting ahead in life because you married someone." But then later you find out he's a little more ambitious than he was presenting, because now he is first division chief, and all he had to do was take that locker room key and be quiet about it. He wasn't trying to help a murderer, but he knew that if he got involved, he would die, and so he just chose to do nothing. And there's the saying, like, men do nothing and evil prevails, right?
Mhm.
I like the exploration of that through this character.
And I love Cho's words to him. What was it? Be the father you would want to be proud of. I thought that was a great line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also it made even more sense why he was susceptible to the corruption. The fact that the former police chief that was his father-in-law got murdered because of this very information.
Right.
So like that's a threat that's right there in the middle of your family. You've already lost somebody. So yeah, very understandable.
So he gets abducted. His car gets gassed. He gets abducted, and he wakes up, and he's back in the old investigation room, and the locker room key is there. And he goes to the locker, and Cho is there, and he's like, "I am terrified to open that. I don't want to open that. If I open that, I'm dead for sure." And then he wakes up, and he's on a park bench with young Cho, and then the woman who died in the bomb shows up, and she's like, "Hey, don't worry. You should have done stuff, but whatever, you need to call and report in." So he dials a phone number, and then it's revealed, oh, this was a VR program that was displayed on your retinas. Also could be that technology for video games. Hell yeah.
It's a brain dance for cyberpunk players.
I'm not one of those yet.
Need that for Squadrons.
Yeah, and so this was Daisuke, Cho, and Haru basically getting information out of him, making sure that he was involved, and so they take him away to be interrogated, which is literally just Cho coming in with a bottle of liquor and being like, "Hey man, tell me," and him being like, "No, I'm gonna die. You need to get me out of here. I don't want to die."
Because this is a holding cell inside of Daisuke's house.
Yes. And they send Haru to get all Cho's old case files, and he's digging through his locker. And then the division chief's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like, I'm getting these old case files for Cho." He's like, "Well, you're gonna need to get into my locker too, because I have been holding them for him." I don't help, but I'm still supportive because I'm just the sweetest, nicest teddy bear of a man. It's just kind of sad and pathetic anyway. So yeah, this guy's locker is also full of case files of a case that he's like, let it go, but he can't turn his friend down to store these case files. I like that there is cheap.
Yep.
So they take those back. There's a picture in them of Daisuke's parents, and Haru is trying to figure out what their badge says, because Cho reveals like there was a third laboratory where something was being created, but it's never on the books, and I could never find it. So they're going through these case files, and they realize this picture will help us figure it out, but they can't identify with there's sun glare on the badges. They can't figure it out. They even scan it in a computer, but on the building is a symbol, and Daisuke is like, "Oh, that's our summer villa. Like I know where that is." So then they decide to go there, and this is where they put Haru in a missile backpack and have him just run around. Yeah, it's funny when they show up, because it's like it's got barbed wire fence and guards, and like, wait, I thought this was your house. He's like, yeah, don't worry about it, we're fine. We can break into it. We're renting it out. So yeah, Haru runs around shooting missiles, and he has like a bullet blocker technology too.
I love the way this backpack's drawn, because if you pay attention to it, not only does it have like 4 openings in the top for missiles to come out, but it's got an exhaust that focuses away from him at the bottom. And then it's got those 2 little balls that come up, and it's got like omnidirectional like shots it can do to blow out, like what is it? They say that any projectiles shot at him will be blocked by this thing.
Yeah.
So at the same time, Daisuke, while this distraction happened, he goes into the laboratory and starts breaking into their thing. At the same time, someone starts breaking into their house. An intruder comes into the Kanbei house, and this is part of the plan. Cho literally tells Take, like, "Oh yeah, we knew the killer would come for you, and so that's what we're here for."
He's like, "I'm bait."
But this person just starts walking through the security firewalls, one room at a time, and nothing seems to be stopping him. And Suzue's like, that's not good. And then the entire system gets shut down. And everyone realizes at the same time, it's got to be it's Kanbei's father. He's the only one who could have access that would override everyone else's.
Well, and that's who shows up on the system when she asks,
right,
like,
yeah,
who's opening these doors.
They see the picture of him. And then Conway also in the laboratory finds evidence his father is alive and behind everything. So it's almost revealed like 3 times. Like, oh, it's the dad. Oh, it's the dad.
Mhm.
Pull the mask off. It's the dad. First mask.
Scooby.
Yeah.
He actually knocks Suzui out. He goes down to where Cho and Takai are, and they had been shown, hey, there's an escape hatch. You can get out of here and get out. And Cho's like, all right, you get out, Takai. I'm gonna face this guy. And Takai's like, no, I won't let you do that alone. And the killer walks in, and the good old butcher knife comes out like a straight out of a horror movie, and they're dead. Suzue wakes up, and Daisuke and Haru are there, and they're like, yeah, they died. And Haru's pissed off because Cho was a good friend of his. And then the division chief talking over Cho's body, like, I told you to not do this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I didn't get how 2 of them were able to get taken down by this guy, but
Oh,
knows-
this guy's like freaking superhuman, and maybe he has one of those suits on underneath his clothing.
oh, maybe.
He clearly knows martial arts.
Yeah, that's all it takes.
Knife
Martial arts
fight.
and a butcher's knife.
Take on 2 trained cops.
Which
That-
didn't have their guns.
Yeah, I was a little surprised. Like, he walks in with just a knife. I'm like, there are really more efficient ways to do this.
And why wouldn't Cho keep his gun if he knew that the killer was coming?
Did
I'd
Cho
keep
ever
the
have a
gun.
gun? Wasn't he part of the no gun division?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. But like, as he's stabbing one of them, why isn't the other one beating the ever loving, crap out of the dude?
Kung Fu
I don't know.
karate, man.
Anyway, Daisuke is basically like, all right, I'm not doing this as a detective anymore. I'm doing this as a Kanbei. Like, this is a family affair. And Haru's like, no, we're going to do this as cops. And Daisuke literally like throws his badge down. And so Haru returns to modern crimes, and the director reveals, hey, you know those dice that Cho was always playing with? Well, those are actually wiretaps. And I have one, and he would have planted the other one on the killer. So we have a way to track down the killer. But then Division 1 comes, and they're all pissed off because their chief just died. And they arrest Haru for questioning, and they tell everyone else they have to stay there. But then they're like, oh, but there's a food truck outside, and we're really hungry. We won't drive anywhere, so it's fine. So
The director's like, I've got this ship I just built. The glue's still wet. Hold it.
So the characters who have been worthless the whole time, they go out to what is actually an empty food truck so that they can track down this die. And then Haru goes through a conversation with his old partner, and the partner's like, you always hated the chief. He's like, no, I didn't. And we've this is where we see the full reveal of what happened to him, and that he tried to quit, and the first division chief actually talked him into staying. And his old partner realizes this by finding the resignation letter and is like, oh, you've been telling the truth the whole time. I'm an idiot. I've been so rude this entire anime.
Yeah, yes. Oh.
So
And they were
go out.
partners.
Yep. So they go out. Meanwhile, Daisuke, he's trying to track down his dad, and all the cameras are being deleted by Husk. Husk is actually, they've realized, is working against them. Someone's using Husk to beat them, deleting files, deleting recordings that they needed. There was
Search
a really
results.
nice sweet scene of Suzue pulling Daisuke into a bed to tell him this.
Yep.
Relatives.
Distant cousins.
And this is the scene where Daisuke is basically instantly creates an app that, hey, if you put your phone up with your camera on, spin around, you'll get paid 1,000 yen.
I
And-
love it.
And so everyone does, and he gets full video of the entire place, finds his dad, tracks him, and basically everyone manages to track him down to a wharf at the same time. Haru gets there first, and he gets on this shipping boat. He sneaks on, and his partner's his old partner's just like, yeah, I'm not going. That's insane. He's just waiting there. Daisuke shows up as the boat's leaving. He puts on this Metal
Super
Gear
suit.
Solid stealth super suit.
Yep.
Honestly, so we've called it Batman. It reminded me of the Batman Beyond suit that can cloak and it makes you stronger and faster. And then he drives his
very Black Panther.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
He drives his car into the water, and it, of course, is also a submarine and goes after the boat.
Mm-hmm.
They blow
And-
up his car.
Yep.
Yeah, so he gets on the boat. He attacks. There's a contact there. His name is Weinsky, like Vince Weinsky or something like that. And he has a laser cannon attached to his arm. I thought
particle accelerator kind of thing.
Yeah, I thought he had a
Like-
robot arm, but it's not. It's just he has it strapped to his arm.
And it's really like primitive and clunky looking too.
Right. and Daisuke is able to beat him at first until they turn on basically it's like a super EMP, and it destroys all of the electronics on the boat except for this gun cannon and all the boat's electronics. It literally just hits Daisuke.
Yeah.
And phones.
Mhm.
And Daisuke's earring gets destroyed, so he has no way of contacting Hughes. And then Haru is like, I'm going to save him and shoot this guy. He's like, no, I can't do that. I can't shoot this guy. So he drops a storage container on them, and so that they're able to get Daisuke away.
Misses both of them.
This is both.
Somehow.
Yeah, they were like in... don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Daisuke complains about that. He's like, you could have at least dropped it on him.
You could have killed him.
They go sneaking around. There's a really funny scene where he's like, do you wear lifts in your shoes? And he just kicks him in the
Yes.
face. That was pretty funny.
That was good.
Again, so Daisuke is always put off as like, I'm the coolest guy ever, but he's actually kind of a phony. He's not
Yes.
tall. He pretends to be tall.
He can't really fight that well. He needs his suit.
He needs a super suit. Yeah.
Where's my super suit?
These Suzue sends these drones to the boat, and they all get shot down and crash into the water. But then little mini drones come out of them, and they bring Daisuke a new earring, and they find out, hey, go to the engine room. That's where whatever's going on is happening. And they find the engine room, and it's basically this new element has been created by his company that could bring free energy or clean energy to the world, or nuclear bombs. Either or.
Yeah.
So they fight the bad guy down there, and Haru has to finally shoot.
Mhm.
He discovers his nerve. I think it was less about his because when he pulls it out, he's shaking just like every other time he's pulled it out before here. But something that watching Daisuke basically being like, I'm relying on you here. You need to help me. And he has a flashback, and he gets his nerve back, and then all of a sudden his hand's steady, and he's able to finally fire.
And he hits the pipe, and the engine starts to overheat, and the ship starts to sink. And
Super suit comes back on.
Super suit turns back on. He's able to beat the bad guy. Daisuke's like, I'm not leaving. I'm getting my dad. So they go up to the bridge. The dad's there, and they're like, you're under arrest. And he uses Hughes to attack them, and it actually shoots Daisuke in the stomach.
And the
back.
leg.
Or,
Yeah, back in the leg.
and then there's an explosion, and the dad gets hurt too. One thing that's in the English dub, Daisuke tells Suzue, make sure the hover bike is ready for me. But we see his dad get on that, and he gets in the helicopter. Did he want his dad to get on the hover bike?
In the sub, it's the dad who calls the hover bike.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe I just missed.
Daisuke asks, or no, Suzue tells them that the helicopter's coming.
Okay.
Yeah.
They also save all the other bad guys and arrest them and drop them off, and then they're like, "We're going after the dad." So they jump back in the helicopter, and he's gone back to the laboratory from where they use the missile backpack. So they go back there. When they get there, they find a first aid kit they use to treat his wound. Daisuke finds this envelope with information that says confidential. He takes it, and Haru finds in the elevator a secret level, and so they go down the secret level, and there's a tube passageway transport thing. They get on that, they ride it, and it takes them all the way back to the Kanbei mansion, and they go and they confront his father, and they're like, "But I've noticed something. My dad was left-handed. Dad was left-handed, and you were right-handed." And so the guy pulls off his mask, and it's the butler. I told these guys before we started recording, as ups and downs of this whole anime, I do absolutely love at the end. The butler did it. That's so kind of like a classic joke hidden in a well-weaved narrative.
Mm-hmm. The butler in the department with the knife.
Yes. But of course, the butler is working for someone, and it's the grandma. The grandma comes out, and she's like, "Yeah, it was me." I was overjoyed when I saw this, because when it was revealed that was the dad, I turned to my daughter, who's already seen the anime, and I said, "Man, I was 100% sure it was going to be the grandma." And I can't believe I was wrong. It was just this dad. And I was actually kind of frustrated. Like, the dad was hardly even mentioned. How was I supposed to ever guess that was the bad guy? Mm-hmm. And then, so this moment plays. I pause the anime. It's like 8 a.m. and I bounce her out of bed. And I'm like, I called it. I called it. She's mad at me still.
She was very cliche about it, though. It's like, "Oh, your dad was weak, so I had to take control." And it's like, okay.
I wanted to ask you about her motives, because at one point, Daisuke is like, "You just wanted to have the money control of this." She says, "We don't want to let something that could be like the new plutonium hit the free world and create wars." And Jeremy, you pointed out that this stuff is being sold on the black market. Is she selling it on the black market?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Guaranteed, because the butler was actually there doing the transaction as the father.
So she is full of crap. She's just doing this for the money.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, and to make sure that the Kanbei family keeps control, right?
Right.
Now, there may be a measure of truth in it, because maybe there are more powerful weapons that could be created, and she's not okayed that. Maybe there are nuclear grade weapons and not just nerve agents and things like that. But who's to say she wouldn't eventually?
I guess I found this whole ending very frustrating. The fight with the butler. So Haru goes after the butler, gets shot. The guy literally like ninjas the gun away and shoots Haru in the leg. But Haru is able to tackle him and then hit him right in his injury. And then does the butler commit like suicide?
I thought so at first, but he's in the
he's alive
cell, so he's alive.
But he had foam coming out of his mouth.
All right.
Yeah,
I complained about the same thing.
Yeah, I thought it was really confusing.
But so then the confrontation with Daisuke and his grandma is he sits down with her and she's like, "You don't want to let something like this get on the world." And meanwhile, Suzue is like uploading it to every university in the world, like every researcher.
She's preparing it to upload.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And she's like, "Should I hit the button?" And Daisuke is like,
he's still thinking. Yeah, he's still thinking.
And then Haru comes in like, "I need an ambulance," and falls on the dang button. Yes. I'm very frustrated because, like, the grandma isn't even being legit when she makes this complaint. She's being very manipulative. So there's not even a true moral quandary for her where she's right. Then Daisuke has a moral quandary, which he never even has to make a decision because it's accidentally taken away from him. And yes, I know what you're going to say. He could have reversed it.
Yes.
And he doesn't.
Yeah.
So you're right about that.
He also said, "Tell Haru thank you for me."
Say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think with everything we've gone through, and like I mentioned in the beginning about Haru, that this is Haru's moment to be like, "Hey, this is the reason you have a conscience character along with you to convince you to do the right thing, not to accidentally fall on the frickin' button." I'm really frustrated that it almost feels like we didn't have time to do this the way we wanted to do. So slip
Oops.
and he hits it.
I think you're right. Now it's purely speculation, but there are only 11 episodes, and normally there's 12 in a season. So I think you're probably right.
And also, like, if Grandma's the mastermind here, why doesn't she have power over Hughes to make it reverse? Like, why didn't she just
Yeah,
do a voice command?
that's true.
That's a really good point. I was a little bit confused about that sort of power and authority over Hughes from the beginning too, because well, not from the beginning, but from the moment of the introduction of limited authority, because it seemed like the way they were talking about the heads of the family, the men of the family, they weren't that great. They were needed to be replaced or whatever, or weren't going to fill the roles. He even comes out and says at one point, "I will never be the head of this family."
Yeah,
And
he did say that.
and he's the only one because he's the only boy, right? So like if you're thinking of it as a patriarchal group, and that's obviously what that president had assumed, he would be the only one to step up. So does that mean that it's a matriarchal family? No, because his father was the head of the household. So like trying to figure out, does the grandma have more authority? Did she inherit the authority from I have no idea what's going
I
on.
assume Grandma has the full authority over the computer. She's the one who gave
Yeah.
the butler more authority than even Daisuke.
Does
And
he
I
have
should
a voice modulator, and is that why Hyusk was like registering it as the father?
yes, he does pull off a
Pulls
voice
something off his throat. Yeah.
very Mission Impossible. We should mention the actual reason why the mom was murdered was because she was very adamant about sharing this technology with the world. She was like, "Hey, this is wrong to withhold this." She got in a fight with her husband about it. Went to her other apartment she had. The butler went there on the grandma's orders to murder her. And also, I want to know why the butler's this loyal. Butlers, you don't have to be this loyal to do murder. Come on. The butler murdered the husband. Daisuke's dad found them and attacked the butler. All Daisuke saw was his dad standing over his mom's body with a knife, and assumed that's why he's the killer. That's the whole story. Grandma's arrested. Butler's arrested. Haru gets out of the hospital 2 weeks later. Hughes is now part of the modern crimes and is being used for porn and gambling and buying snacks online.
Please tell me what the hand is of the other players.
And the division chief reveals that he has been the interim division chief the entire time for all these years because he got demoted when everything happened with Cho. And now he's finally been re-promoted to actual director. And he wants to go celebrate.
Yep.
And then end credits. Oh no! So okay, one more question. Daisuke's dad is alive, but he's in a vegetative state because they go to see him. He's like, "Did you talk to your dad?" He's like, "No, I can't." And then you see him like in a wheelchair on a hill.
It did seem that way. Like whatever happened with him and the butler, he ended up being vegetized.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and then Haru gives Daisuke his badge back. Then we have end credits, and then we have an end credits scene. Haru's in New York fighting crime
in the Bronx.
He's wearing a power suit, and he calls Daisuke. He's like, "Where are you?" He's like, "I'm at my house." Daisuke's standing at Buckingham Palace.
Yes,
and is like, "I'll be there in a minute." Shows up
18 minutes. He says
18 minutes later. He shows up from England to America. That's the other. That was the other magic thing, Jeremy. I didn't know if you thought would be okay with it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, I mean, if he flies over in an ICBM, I can see him getting there in 18 minutes.
Yeah, he would have to take that.
So Haru stops the car on a bridge while Daisuke's raining missiles on it. And then we get a mirror of the original scene.
Did you say how he came out of the rocket? Like he literally drove off the rocket and had a parachute on the back of his car.
That says wealthy.
Parachute says wealth.
Wealth, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get a mirror of, "Hey, I'm hanging from the bridge and you're standing over me." And Daisuke reaches down and then goes, "Nope," and lets him fall.
Psych.
Yeah. Now, I did have a little minor problem with this, even though I absolutely love the scene and I love how it reflects back on the previous iteration of it. But he's wearing that super suit to the point where he can actually stop a car by getting in front of it and putting
He
his
should be able
hands
to
on the
pull up
car
his
seat.
own body weight.
Yeah, he should have been able to like jerk and jump up basically and land on his feet on the bridge. He shouldn't have needed help. Maybe the suit shorted out. I don't know, but I did have one other issue I wanted to bring up, and that was when they were on the boat and the big sphere of disruption super EMP blast went out. This was a little confusing to me because I saw some devices got fried, other devices shut down. So I was trying to figure out, what does this sphere do? Is it something that stops electrical things from working, stops transmission actively, or is it something that EMP bursts things?
No,
Or
its
does it
other
do
name is
both?
Deus Ex Machina.
Sure, I understand. I know what you mean, but I mean, I'm trying to, because they used it in the first instance. It's the same field. It disrupted the telephones, but it didn't destroy them. Their phones were still there, and after the field was shut down, they could use them. That was with the president, right?
I'm
And
just
so
letting you work this out for yourself. Keep going.
okay, so the second field, here's the only conclusions I've come to, because the phone actually causes him pain when he pulls it out of his pocket. He throws it away. So some devices actually are destroyed by this field, while other devices are merely inhibited by the field because his suit flips back on when the field disappears. So his suit wasn't destroyed.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
And the arm cannon, which was right next to him, worked fine.
Which means that the arm cannon must be working on the same technology as the field, and therefore the field's not disrupting it.
And
That's the only thing.
this is what's bugging you about the show.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Anyway,
Jason, Jeremy said he didn't. Jason, did you see the Ghostbusters Easter egg? So
I missed it.
on the white car that they stopped, that's on the bridge, the license plate says New York Ecto 001, which is the license plate of the Ghostbusters car.
Okay.
I have no idea why they did it. Apparently, some animator was like, I freaking love Ghostbusters, and I'm giving this random car. It's not even the Ghostbusters car. Random car that gets the. It is a New York license plate, I guess. That would make sense.
I did love the one English line in that.
Yeah, because they were. All right, let's go to our final reviews. Jason, what'd you think?
I had a lot of problems with this one. It was tough to get a hold of the protagonist, but the actual like conspiracy was fairly interesting and was enjoyable to see come to a conclusion. I thought it did feel rushed near the end. But I did like that it kind of wrapped literally all the strings in a nice little bow by the end. It leaves it open for a season 2, but not a cliffhanger for a season 2, which I like. I kind of want to give it a 2 because I didn't have a great time with it, but I don't have enough complaints to give it that, so I'm going to give it a 3. It's kind of a low 3 for me, but I guess it's just kind of middle of the road.
Jeremy, what'd you think?
For me, this is just barely a 4. Just barely scrapes out of the zone of a 3 for me. It was a lot more entertaining than I expected. I expected to be just kind of bored out of my mind with this one, but I really took a liking to the characters, and I got a kick out of watching their endless frustration with each other's approaches to things. And the story, I thought it was engaging enough and satisfying enough in its conclusion. Just little minor technical issues that I have with it here and there, and just generally, I don't know, there were things that I think that they needed more time to develop, and I really think this was rushed. Maybe the budget wound up just not being enough to do what they were hoping to do. So
it needed
just
to be
barely
12 episodes.
Yeah.
COVID might have also affected this one. I'm wondering
Think
if
so?
I
That
can't
would be
remember if I read
interesting.
something about that. That it went on a hiatus or something.
That would make a difference.
For me, it's a 3. I do love cop things, and once the conspiracy started going, I was entertained by that. The characters weren't my favorites, and I think there could have been done more with them. I understand why people do love it, though. So I think it's more myself that didn't connect with it. So yeah, 3 for me. Our next anime is kind of different. If you've listened to us for a while, you know we do this around Christmas time. This episode will probably come out either right before or right after Christmas. So but we're on Christmas break. So to give ourselves a little bit more time to spend time with family and not have to worry about keeping up with anime, we watch a movie. And then we still do our regular episodes, so there'll still be normal stuff, but we're gonna be talking about a movie. The movie that has been chosen for this year is Promare by Studio Trigger. They did Kill la Kill, they did Gurren Lagann, they've done other anime we've talked about on this podcast that I'm not going to mention. So they should be really fun and different from any other movies we've seen before, based on what I saw in the trailer. And that's going to be our movie. And then after that, Jeremy and Jason will each have a pick of any anime. It doesn't have to be recent, where they, because when we started this anime, we were like, hey, let's just try to keep things current to keep our audience up with us. And there's a lot of anime they like to go back and catch up on, and this is their chance to really either show off one that they loved from the past, or explore one that they wish they hadn't missed. And I think it's a really fun tradition we do at the start of the year. So that's what's coming up. So new anime will be taking a couple weeks off, and then we'll go back into our regular rotation, which is kind of good because there is a lot coming, but things had slowed down a little bit on the anime picks. All right.
Oh, and for anybody who's may have trouble looking up what that anime movie is called, Promare is Promare. I thought it was Promare, like Mayer. So maybe that'll save you some trouble.
I did have to ask how to spell it too when I was looking for the trailer. So thank you. And it'll be in the description too, as long as I spell it right when I create that.
Good luck, everyone.
All right, with that. Oh, no. If you have thoughts on The Millionaire Detective, if you have thoughts on any anime we've talked about, please feel free to reach out to us on our Twitter at Baka Podcast, or email the animebakaclub@gmail.com, or leave a comment wherever you found the podcast, so it gets back to us and we can continue to interact. We love the comments, and so keep them on coming. Now let's go ahead and say goodbye.
Thanks for listening.
Ballads Unlimited.
Sayonara.